Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today I have some fun shaker card inspiration for you and a bonus project to share. I am making 2 shaker cards using the club kits from Spellbinders from October 2025. There's only a couple of days left on club pricing for these, like it's cheaper if you get them the month that they come out. So to some extent, I may walk you through alternatives for these die sets. This is the large die of the month, and it has this fantastic like bay window. Is that what we call this? My parents have one. It's got like a bench seat, super great. So I cut the bay window out of a sheet of 5.5 by 8.5 inch cardstock, right? Kind of in the middle. I added some temporary tape on the back, and I'm using just a baby wipe to add a little bit of moisture. And then I'm coming in with my lightest gray ink from this trio of gray inks, but it's not a barely there kind of ink. Like this is still definitely pigmented, and I'm going to tap that lightly onto the other side, trying not to squish the foam. Then I will drop that right onto my cardstock. And my friends, it's this beautiful like white painted brick that has just the subtlest shadow, kind of not only like in the mortar between the bricks, but in the bricks themselves, because there's all of these little divots. Oh, it's so good. I could not have imagined how beautifully this would turn out. Then I'm coming in with that same gray ink and a fluffy brush. This is my shading Sidekick from Trinity. These are newer small brushes that are really soft and fluffy, so I can get that nice fade into nothing. The Spellbinders large blending brushes are similarly fluffy. They're just huge. So this seemed a better fit. I'm going to bring a little bit of ink also onto this Christmas tree. Comes in the same die set. This whole card, really, we're just using the dies in that one set. When you get the large die of the month from Spellbinders, it's massive. There's just a ton in there. Let me know in the comments if you have already ordered this one. I am absolutely in love. Because we're making a shaker, I need some acetate. I'm using Grafix shrink film because it's super crystal clear and heavyweight. I let my glue set up and get a little bit tacky before I added the acetate onto the glue. We're on the back, by the way, of our brick wall. If you don't have this large die set, if it's sold out or if the month is over, Spellbinders also has the Vista view window. It is this enormous window, not a bay window, but just like the kind that slides upwards. It's bigger, and so you would be able to show more inside of the window. And then a lot of us I know already have Christmas tree dies. One of my favorites is from the Christmas Wreath add-on, and it's a little more graphic, a little more whimsical. I think this one's a little more realistic, if that can be true, of a paper die cut evergreen tree. But I think either of those would work well, or there's tons of other brands out there. I have a few others. I will link below just to my favorite kind of window die sets in case you have one that maybe you've forgotten about, and it'll be like a visual supply list to maybe jog your memory. You also could use just a square die, right? That would work fine, or a circle. We just are creating a window to create that shaker element and then the Christmas tree on the inside. This one happens to come with curtains, and I'm doing everything in a sort of black and white theme. So I added my black accents and then a little gold tie for the curtains, and I'm going to stack up the window. Here's what happens. I cut a hole for the window out of a piece of cardstock, and then I ran it through a deeply detailed embossing folder, 3D embossing folder. And so it shrinks a little. If I want my window to pop perfectly into the hole that I cut, I can keep dreaming. It's not going to happen. And so I have to figure out just the best way to make it fit. So I'm going to stack this up a little bit so it looks like it's supposed to stick out slightly from that hole. And I like the added dimension of it. You could do this with foam tape instead, but there were some skinny little pieces and I didn't want to deal with it. So here we go. I am looking at the bottom third, right? And there are little wings that stick out from the side. You can sort of see them just above my left hand. I am looking at those notches that are cut out of the window when I go to lay this down. To me, visually, that would be the most telling, is if I didn't get those notches covered up and there was sort of clear acetate showing through. So I let my glue set up, and then I'm aiming for those notches, and then as best I can to cover up the rest of the holes. And this turned out pretty well. If you don't get it right the first time when you're gluing onto acetate, if you're careful, a lot of times you can peel that back up and try again. It's not overlapping the cardstock very much at all. So, give it a try and then piece it back in there if you need to. I'm just going to put some of my magnets on it from my glass board to really keep some weight on it, make sure I've got good contact with the glue, and then I'll start working on my tree. By the way, if you've been thinking about a glass board, there's a sale right now. They have new products that just released. I have a coupon code. I think it's Sassy's LLC. I'll put it up on screen for you. And right now you can get 20% off your purchase with that coupon code. It's just for a couple of days. They have a new product release. There's a tool out that will hold your ink pad in a little holder on your glass board. And I think I need one. For the Christmas lights, I have cut them out of black, and there is a die to cut out the individual colors of the bulbs, but I didn't feel like dealing with it. So I'm using a silver marker from scrapbook.com. It's their brand. I'll link it below. I love this thing. It shows up great on black cardstock, but you could use like an acrylic paint pen or a colored pencil for that as well. And then I've used some of the white treasured cardstock, and I'm going to hot foil one of these new sentiments from Hero Arts on there. If you've been here, you know I mostly use my own sentiments, but these were hysterical and I had to. So this one says, when you stop believing in Santa Claus, you get socks. And when you foil onto a glossy cardstock or a specialty cardstock that's really slick, almost plasticky, my friends, you get an epic foiling. And this turned out perfectly. The other sentiments in there say things like, thank you for the awesome gift. Family and friends are the best gifts of all. Here for the presents. Just kidding. And I just love it. It cracks me up. Hero Arts has been doing some really great, funny sentiments, and I am on board. So I added a little foam tape at the very bottom and then a little curve of foam tape along the snowy top edge. Honestly, I could have scooted the whole thing down a little bit more, but I didn't. So it's fine. So I have my snowdrift on the bottom with my perfectly foiled sentiment, and then I'm adding glue behind my lights, and I'm tapping that off on some scratch paper to make sure I don't have glue oozing out and showing up on black cardstock or showing up on my acetate, two places where it just seems to stick out more than, say, on a white cardstock. And then I'll go ahead and add my curtains. So these are going to go on the inside of my shaker, right? You're going to see them through the window. And I should have dry fit this first so I could see exactly where they needed to go. There is a notch at the top of the curtains to kind of show you how it lines up with the window, but I have glue like a little too far down, a little too far up from the bottom. I originally was going to just line them up with the very top of that window die. They fit nicely that way, but my glue wasn't in the right place. So I'm going to fiddle around until they look even, right? We're going to make it work because I'm definitely not recutting them. And actually, I'm quite pleased. I think it turned out nicely. It's pretty forgiving. Then I'm going to have a piece of specialty cardstock. Friends, I forgot to give you like their dramatic show of this cardstock. I think it came from Cardstock Warehouse, and it is a silver foil cardstock that has this sort of up and down texture to it. I can't even describe it. It's absolutely stunning, and I thought it would make an elegant, beautiful backdrop for our tree without introducing a whole nother color in there. So we have the one pop of green in the tree and the red in the sentiment, and I am just super, super pleased. I'm going to add some foam tape down at the bottom, and then I'm going to add a smaller well that goes directly around the window for our shaker bits. And I'm using some of the flat discs or embellishments from Spellbinders. So it's the gold smooth discs and the Aura Opalescent Sequins. So I have, again, all of my foam tape already on there. I tried to give you a little close-up look, but it's white on white. Sorry, I know. And then I have just a little bit of foam down at the very bottom on our specialty cardstock because I know that the bottoms of these two panels are going to line up exactly. I poured my sequins right into the middle. It's about half and half of the two different types of sequins. And then I have it all up in the corner of my scoreboard, but I really only need the bottom edge. So what you're seeing at the top of my scoreboard is the bottom edge of our window panel and the bottom edge of our silver specialty cardstock. And that's it. I got it lined up perfectly. I had actually cut that piece to be a little smaller than the card front, so I didn't have to worry about getting everything perfect. And then I thought I was going to be done, but really I wanted to foil this onto white glitter cardstock. And I did it once, but the only white glitter cardstock I have, because I need to restock, is sort of chunky glitter, and it didn't foil very well. If you have some glitter cardstock that's more of that plasticky, not in a terrible way, but plasticky feel to it, that foils amazingly. Since I couldn't do that, and I felt like this glossy white cardstock hinted ever so slightly yellow, I wanted to add some glitter. So I went around the edges of our snowbank here and added some Glaze N Glue. It's like glossy accents, except that it's, I don't know, I feel like it levels out better. Then I added my glitter on and let that dry overnight. It does create just a little bit of dimension as well. But my friends, this is card number 1 complete. I hope you love this as much as I do. I just think it's so elegant. For card number 2, we're going to use the stencil of the month. There are 5 stencils in here, and they're all going to layer up to create one big A2 panel with this huge snowman. Like, he's so stinking cute. What I love about a stencil set like this is that my boys can help, right? My boys are both in grade school, and every now and then they get interested in helping me make cards, especially if I'm willing to do it down at the kitchen table. And my youngest loves using blending brushes. So this is easy enough for me to just be responsible for taping down the different layers of the stencil. And then my older son is actually very artistic and understands shading and stuff, at least to some extent. And so he might really enjoy, say, adding a little bit of darker orange right under the carrot nose. There's actually more on that stencil, but I'm going to come back to it. Here, I'm going to do the cheeks and some pink. I just used whatever was left over on my brush. And then I opted for a red hat. My friends, I love a deeply saturated stenciled image. Let me know, do you like leaving it sort of light and see-through, or like here, this is cherry ink. I want this to be a cherry color. Even on the nose where like I was ink blending up from the bottom, the marigold color I was using, or like a pale marigold, I still went full color. When I go to add my blacks, like his eyes or the kohl for his mouth, I'm using a black pigment ink, and I'm going to go over that until it is dark, dark black, like almost velvety black, and I love that. You notice it particularly here. This is the stencil that had the cheeks on it, but I wanted to stencil the red of the hat before the black of the hat. I probably could have just swapped the order of those 2 stencils altogether, but this made sense to me at the time. When I go in for his eyebrows, I'm going to use a very light gray, and I've come back to those Trinity shading sidekicks. It's also working nicely here. There is like a whole very graphic band that is the shadow under his face, but I didn't want to fill the whole thing in, so I just sort of went from the circle of the face and pulled my ink from the stencil into that open area, but I didn't fill it in on the bottom to avoid that harsh line. There's this little accent section on the band of the hat, and so I went over that with some gold ink, and I just love that little pop of shine on here. I trimmed out the entire panel, so it is 4 by 5 1/4, and then I cut some recycled packaging. This, I think, had some cardstock in it. I just got a whole bunch of the color wheel cardstock from Spellbinders, and I saved all of the packaging. Normally I keep it in the packaging that it comes in, but some of them, like, it didn't really survive me opening things in my enthusiasm. So the paper ended up in like a little plastic sleeve, and then I can use the packaging to make a shaker. I have some white liner tape. It's the Spellbinders double-sided adhesive tape that I've just put around the edges. And I like to do the 2 sides or opposite sides first to make sure I haven't kept my plastic too small. And I try not to pull it too tightly. I want room for the sequins to really move around in there. Then I'll clip the corners where that plastic is sort of doubled over and add my sequins through the section that I haven't taped down yet. I'm using the same Aura Opalescent sequins for this one as well. So I have one more section, and I'll remove the backing paper, and then I'm sort of pulling the corners out and then laying the plastic onto the adhesive. This just helps make sure I have this sort of pucker of plastic that I can easily trim away. And then I went around and put adhesive tape on top of all of those plastic flaps one more time, just because glue doesn't always stick really well to acetate. Then I'm using Zip Dry. It's a solvent-based adhesive to set this one down because my margins are so small and I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of wiggle room. This one, you get a fair bit of time to lift that back up before it's permanent. I'm going to add just a strip sentiment on here, and this is from the Sassy Holidays sentiment set. It was a freebie that came out around this time last year. So I'll link in the description box below to the video with these Sassy Holiday sentiments. For this card, we're going to use during this most festive time of year on the front, and then on the inside, it will say, I hate you the least. But that set also has Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Whiskey, Vodka, Tequila, Blitzen. May your holiday breakdown be filled with joy. Deck yourself, like on the outside of your card, with a little tree before you wreck yourself on the inside. And then my favorite, from our Merry Mayhem to yours. So for the inside, I didn't want to use a strip sentiment. I'm going to use one of our rectangle sentiments. I'm using the tick marks on the printable, and I'm cutting from the bottom up to the top, but I'm leaving the header intact. So you can see my strips aren't really falling away here. I'm just creating these little flaps. Then I'll rotate and connect the tick marks on the side, and I'm going to get perfectly sized sentiments. Nearly all of my kits have sentiments in this size. On this particular card, I'm not going to swap out the sentiment, but sometimes I make a card that's a little generic, right? It could be birthday, it could be holiday. And so I really love using sentiments in interchangeable sizes so my stash is more versatile. And I'm not sitting there with cards that have never found their perfect home, which is to say I have those, but they're old at this point because I made them before almost everything I made used emergency sentiments. So I'll use removable adhesive to add that inside piece. I could instead just say Merry Christmas and swap that out later. But there is card number 2, my friends. It's so cute. I love it a lot. I'm going to show you just a little piece of this. This is from the small die of the month. There's a snowman, a tree, and then 2 people who can be decorating that snowman or building that snowman. He comes together really, really quickly. There's just 2 pieces. I love when snowmen aren't 3 pieces, right? Or like even just, I call it a 1 lump snowman, right? Some short little snowman who's adorable and chubby. Those are my favorites. So I stacked up my 2 layers, and then I'm just putting little scraps of black cardstock behind the eyes and the buttons. And then on the front, he's only got a couple of pieces. We have some arms and we have a carrot nose. And I'm going to use just some of that leftover gray ink here that we used on the previous card to add a little shading on the bottom of the snowman. But on camera, I think it's really hard to pick up. So you could absolutely skip that. A little glue behind the arms. I love when they have the little sort of circle at the base of the arm. So there's a little more cardstock for that glue to grab onto. And his are going to be like straight out to the side, sort of up in the air. He does not know what to do with himself. And I added him onto this treat box, you guys. This is the ribbon box. This came out maybe last year. And I like to put the ribbon on there with Velcro dots, so it's really easy to like open it up and no one has to retie a bow. It will fit a gift card. And I have 2 layers of Velcro on that. It still fits through the slot just fine. I use 3/8 inch Velcro dots. My bow Velcros onto there. There's another sentiment from that same Hero Art set. Hope your Christmas is filled with your favorites. And then we have this Snowfall Shimmer BetterPress plate that I used and hot foiled all over the box. My friends, that is 3 projects, 2 of them start to finish, some fun shaker inspiration for you. Let me know in the comments below. Are you a club subscriber? Would you like to see more club inspiration? If you are free tonight, Friday, October 24th, I would love if you would join me over on Craft Roulette. I will be the guest crafter, and I'm oddly nervous. I haven't been nervous about Craft Roulette in a minute, so come join us in the chatterbox. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.